You have probably been trying to make a really major leap in your life recently.
Yeah, I think we all have that one specific area we're actively fighting with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like for the person listening to us right now, maybe on their morning commute, maybe you are trying to land a massive career promotion.
Right. Or maybe you were trying to build a business from the ground up, just working those brutal nights and weekends.
Yeah, or perhaps you're finally trying to secure a healthy, harmonious relationship after like years of just exhausting, toxic dating.
And you're doing everything right. You are running the standard playbook, basically doing exactly what society tells you to do.
You are doing the work. I mean, you read all the behavioral psychology books, you put in those grueling hours at the office, you drag yourself to the gym at 5 a.m.
You meticulously update the resume.
Right. You go on that endless string of awkward first dates. But despite all of this monumental, completely exhausting effort, you just keep hitting the exact same invisible wall.
It's like being trapped in a repetitive loop that feels entirely inescapable.
It really does.
Yeah.
But, well, here is where it gets incredibly interesting. Because even more confusing than the constant failures are, the actual successes.
Oh, absolutely. The brief moments when that invisible wall finally seems to crumble for just a second.
Yes. When things actually do go smoothly for once, like when a golden opportunity just lands right in your lap out of nowhere, a perfect, high-paying client, or an emotionally available, incredibly supportive partner.
And what happens? A quiet, insidious little voice in your head immediately whispers, something is off here.
Exactly. This is too good to be true. And almost like an involuntary physical reflex, you end up, inadvertently pushing it away.
You pick a fight over nothing, you miss a crucial deadline, you completely ghost the person.
It's wild. It is a phenomenal, almost tragic paradox of human behavior.
It really is. I mean, you work relentlessly for a specific outcome. You pour your absolute soul into it, and the very moment the universe attempts to hand it to you on a silver platter.
Your internal alarm bells just start ringing at deafening volumes.
Yeah. Right. You become deeply, fundamentally suspicious of the exact thing you have been begging for.
Which makes absolutely no logical sense. So, what does this all mean? Well, that is our mission today.
And it's a big one.
It is. We are exploring a fascinating stack of anonymous personal development manuscripts, behavioral research, and psychological studies to uncover the hidden architecture of how reality is actually created.
We're going to examine those invisible, subconscious forces that literally govern our endless cycles of self-sabotage.
And most importantly, for you listening, we are going to learn how to permanently shift our internal programming so we can finally, just accept the things we actually want.
To really set the stage for this exploration, we have to start by completely dismantling a foundational assumption that governs modern society.
Okay, lay it on me.
We mistakenly believe that our actions create our reality.
Which is what we're taught from day one.
Exactly. In school, in our careers, in every single self-help seminar you've ever attended, cause and effect. You want a result, you take a physical action.
Right, the whole hustle culture mentality.
But the core thesis we are examining today reveals that, in truth, our actions are merely the byproduct of our internal frequency.
Or internal frequency, okay.
Yeah. If you are stuck in a frustrating loop, it is not because you aren't doing enough. It's because you are operating on a frequency of struggle.
Okay, wait, let's unpack this. Because you just essentially flipped the entire motivational industry completely on its head.
I know, it's a big claim.
It is. We are told action is the absolute holy grail, right? Just do it, grind it out. But these materials suggest we are starting at the wrong end of the assembly line entirely.
We are entirely backward. There is a concept introduced in these manuscripts called the MDS, the multidimensional sequence of events.
The multidimensional sequence.
Right. And this is supposedly the actual unvarnished blueprint of how reality materializes around us.
So how does this sequence actually play out? Because if action isn't step one, I think a lot of people are going to be very confused.
The MDS is central to understanding why human beings remain utterly paralyzed in their current circumstances. It explains why people stay in the exact same financial conditions or the same relational dynamics for literally decades.
Even when they desperately want to change.
Exactly. The sequence operates in a very strict chronological order. It starts with frequency.
Okay, frequency is first.
Yes. Frequency leads to intuition. Intuition leads to mental nudges. Mental nudges lead to action. And action, finally, leads to reality.
Wow. Okay, let me repeat that. Frequency, intuition, mental nudges, action, reality. Yeah. So action is step 4 out of 5.
Yes. And we treat it like it is the absolute only step that matters.
We really do. We treat it like it's step 1.
Most people attempt to change their lives exclusively at that action stage. They think, well, I want a different financial reality, so I will just take a different action.
I'll just work 12 hours today instead of 8.
Right. The action is a downstream consequence. Think of it like water flowing out of a faucet.
Right.
If you do not change the upstream source, the reservoir, which is the frequency, the current will eventually overpower your forced white-knuckled actions.
Wait, I have to push back on this for just a second because,
Yeah.
Therapy and conventional self-help always tell us that action precedes motivation.
I hear that all the time.
Right. If someone is deeply depressed or completely unmotivated, the clinical advice is often just to get out of bed, force the action first, make the bed, take a shower, and the feeling will follow.
Sure.
So how does this frequency first idea not just encourage people to sit on their couch, wait for their vibration to magically change, and do absolutely nothing?
That is a very crucial distinction to make. The materials are absolutely not suggesting that action is irrelevant or that you should just become entirely passive.
Okay, good. Because that sounds like a recipe for disaster.
The issue is actually about sustainability and the path of least resistance. When a therapist tells a depressed patient to just get out of bed, they are using action as a temporary shock to the system.
To kind of disrupt the behavioral loop.
Exactly, and that can work in the micro term, but think about the sheer energy required to do that. It requires immense draining willpower.
It feels like pushing a massive boulder up a very steep hill.
It does, because willpower is a finite cognitive resource. You can force an action that contradicts your internal frequency for a day, maybe a week.
Maybe a month if you are incredibly disciplined.
Sure, but eventually your cognitive load maxes out. You get tired. And the moment you relax your grip on that willpower, your internal frequency snaps you violently back to your baseline reality.
The boulder rolls back down the hill and just crushes you.
Precisely. The texts assert that action does not create a lasting reality. Rather, it midwives frequency into existence.
Midwives it? Wow. This is such a specific and honestly provocative word choice.
It's very intentional.
It implies that the life is already there, The creation has already happened internally in the womb of the mind, and the physical action is just the biological process of delivering it.
That is the exact implication. The true creation happens on a higher plane, the mental and emotional plane. Action is just the facilitation of that consciousness into physical reality.
I love that.
The manuscripts use a brilliant physical analogy to really illustrate this mechanism. They compare imagination, self-concept, and human consciousness to steam.
Steam, like from boiling water.
Exactly. Steam is absolutely real, and it contains massive amounts of energy. I mean, it can power entire locomotives, but it is intangible. You cannot hold it in your hands.
Right, it's completely formless.
Formless, but incredibly potent. Now, as that steam condenses, as it moves downward toward materialization, it turns into liquid water.
Okay, following you.
And eventually, if the temperature drops enough, it solidifies into ice. Action is that transition phase. Action is the physical process of steam turning into ice.
Oh, wow.
It is the solidification of what already exists internally into a tangible, measurable object or event that we can see and touch in this three-dimensional world.
But, okay, following that logic, if your internal steam is polluted, right? If it's toxic, heavy, and full of scarcity, your ice is going to be toxic.
You cannot freeze polluted steam and expect to get a pristine, crystal-clear block of spring water ice.
That makes so much sense. You've hit the core of the issue. And this brings us to a highly relatable example from the research regarding physical fitness.
Yes. The fitness example is perfect for this.
Let's look at a hypothetical individual. From a frequency standpoint, this person operates heavily on the frequency of being unfit and unhealthy.
That is their deeply held self-concept.
Right. When they look in the mirror, when they think about their stamina, their core identity is tied to being out of shape.
So their internal radio station, their baseline vibration, is tuned strictly to the I'm an unhealthy person broadcast 247.
Yes, exactly. Now let's run that through the multidimensional sequence. Because of the MDS, that unhealthy frequency dictates their intuition.
And we often think of intuition as some mystical, magical superpower.
Right, like a sixth sense.
But the word simply means inner tuition or inner teaching. It is your internal guidance system pulling data from your subconscious database.
Okay.
And your intuition is a direct, unfiltered download from whatever frequency you are currently tuned into.
So if I am tuned to the unhealthy frequency, my intuition cannot possibly give me the guidance of a world-class Olympic athlete.
It literally doesn't have access to that data packet.
It's like trying to load a website, but the server only hosts files related to being tired and unfit.
It cannot access anything outside its programmed parameters. It can only download instructions that perfectly align with the identity of being unhealthy.
So what happens next in the sequence? The intuition creates mental nudges.
Yes. The mind begins to quietly, silently guide you throughout your day.
It whispers things like, it's raining outside, the roads are really slick, let's just skip the gym today.
Or, look at that incredible chocolate cake in the break room. You had a brutal meeting with your boss, you deserve a reward.
Or the ultimate nudge of defeat, which I've definitely felt. What's the point of even exercising anyway? You've tried a dozen times before, you always quit, why suffer through it?
Oh man, so your mind literally finesses you out of the action.
It really does. You think you're making a conscious, free will choice to skip the gym because of the rain, but you are actually just following a perfectly logical, predetermined sequence.
A sequence dictated by your core frequency. The mind is an absolute master of rationalization.
It finesses itself out of taking contradictory action just to protect its identity.
Exactly. This is why attempting to take massive action from a state of survival will never, ever bring ultimate freedom.
Action taken from a deep internal frequency of poverty will never bring sustainable wealth.
You will either burn out trying to make the money, or you will subconsciously sabotage the business once it actually gets successful.
And action taken from a frequency of being unfit will never bring lasting fitness. The upstream psychological forces will beat the downstream physical actions every single time.
So if we just try to force new habits without changing our internal state,
Like white-knuckling a restrictive diet.
right, or forcing ourselves to cold call 100 clients while feeling terrified, desperate, and unworthy inside, are we essentially just fighting our own internal GPS?
That is the absolute perfect way to visualize it,
Yeah.
and it is incredibly exhausting.
I can imagine.
Your internal GPS is rigidly programmed for destination A, which is your current reality. You are gripping the steering wheel, knuckles turning white, physically trying to force the car off the highway toward destination B.
You are fighting the alignment of the tires. You are fighting the navigation system yelling at you to make a U-turn.
Recalibrating.
Exactly. And eventually, your arms just get tired. You have a stressful day, you get distracted, you let go of the wheel for 1 second, and the GPS violently autocorrects right back to destination A.
You cannot break a behavioral cycle with the exact same intuition.
And you absolutely cannot change your intuition without first changing your frequency.
Okay, this raises a massive question for me, and I know the listener's thinking the exact same thing right now.
Let's hear it.
If frequency dictates our reality, and it's this incredibly powerful, invisible force, why on earth is our frequency so often tuned to stuck?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. Why are so many of us operating on a frequency that actively, aggressively works against what we consciously want? If we all want to be happy, wealthy, and healthy, why is the baseline so miserable?
That is the pivotal question that drives this entire exploration. If we all consciously desire success, peace, and abundance, why do our internal frequencies default to agonizing struggle?
It makes no sense.
The research materials reveal a major societal conditioning block that almost all of us have internalized since childhood, especially if we didn't grow up with immense generational privilege.
Okay, what is it?
It is the deeply ingrained, culturally celebrated belief that hard work equals self-worth.
Oh, wow. Hard work equals self-worth. That hits painfully close to home.
It is the water we swim in. It is everywhere in our culture. We are programmed by our parents, our schools, and the media to view struggle as inherently noble.
Think about how we talk about success. When someone is known as a relentless grinder, someone who burns the midnight oil, who sacrifices their weekends.
Who sacrifices their physical health and their family time for their career.
Exactly. We assign a massive degree of nobility to them. We say, now that is a good, honorable, deserving person.
And on the flip side, if someone achieves something with ease or if they prioritize rest and balance, society immediately labels them as lazy.
We question the legitimacy of their success. If a kid gets an A on a test without studying, the other students resent them.
We view ease as suspicious, almost dishonorable. We view it as unearned.
Which is wild when you actually think about it.
The manuscripts point out that this association is a fatal psychological mistake.
Yeah.
It's not that working hard is inherently bad or that effort is evil.
Right. Effort is just effort.
The problem lies entirely in the emotional enmeshment. We attach our internal fundamental self-worth directly to our external physical output.
So when we are exhausted, stressed, and working hard, our self-worth is temporarily inflated. We feel justified in existing.
But the moment we stop working, the moment we just sit on the couch to watch a movie, our self-worth
It
plummets.
feels so incredibly guilty.
We allow the chaotic external world to dictate our internal state of value.
And here's where it gets really interesting, based on a profound psychological rule outlined in the readings.
The uncompartmentalized mind.
Yes, the material state. Nothing is compartmentalized in the mind. Let me just repeat that because it feels huge for anyone listening who thinks they have their life neatly organized.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
Nothing is compartmentalized in the mind.
It is a foundational truth of human neurology and psychology. People desperately like to believe they can keep different areas of their lives in separate, hermetically sealed little boxes.
They tell themselves, I struggle aggressively at work and deal with constant burnout, but my romantic relationship is totally fine and peaceful.
Or, I have crippling anxiety about my finances, but I don't let it affect my physical health.
But the clinical reality is that the brain just does not work that way. One particular core belief held in the mind will have massive, uncontrollable ripple effects across all other aspects of your life.
The subconscious is an entirely uncompartmentalized operating system.
So if I hold the core belief that my worth is inextricably tied to my struggle, that I only deserve good things, love, or money, if I physically bleed for them,
That belief isn't just going to stay contained at the office.
it's going to bleed into my living room, my bedroom, and my friendships.
It will inevitably ripple into every single corner of your existence. Because you have attached your internal worth to external struggle, you will subconsciously demand that everything in your life be incredibly difficult.
Just to feel a sense of earning it.
You have an aspect of your mind that fundamentally believes it is only honorable if things are hard. Therefore, to constantly prove your worth to yourself and to the world, you will systematically, actively make everything in your life much harder than it needs to be.
The sources have this incredibly vivid, almost poetic term for this phenomenon: theatrical performative vanity.
It's quite a phrase.
I read that phrase and had to sit back and just stare at the wall for a minute. Theatrical performative vanity.
It perfectly describes what we do.
We put our romantic relationships through absolute hell. We start unnecessary arguments, we test our partners, we create drama, just so the relationship feels like it has depth and is worth something.
We drag our bank accounts through the trenches by making poor investments or overspending.
We sabotage our own careers, we create toxic office politics, we miss crucial deadlines, all to recreate the visceral feeling of being in the trenches.
Because if we aren't suffering in the trenches, we literally don't know who we are.
It is a profound crisis of identity. And the phrase is accurate. It is performative vanity because it is entirely objectively unnecessary.
The struggle isn't actually required to achieve the result. You can build a business from a place of joy.
You can have a loving relationship without screaming matches.
But we enforce the struggle to satisfy our own internal warped requirement for worthiness. We become physiologically and psychologically addicted to the frequency of struggle.
Addicted to struggle. That explains so much. It explains why, when things are actually easy, we absolutely freak out.
We don't know how to handle it.
The research presents this humorous, yet completely jarring example that I think everyone can relate to. Imagine you are sitting at a bar, minding your own business.
Okay, picture it.
And an incredibly attractive person just walks right up to you, smiles, and says, hey, I think you're really interesting. I want to get out of here.
For someone operating without a struggle complex, that is a delightful moment.
But for someone deeply entrenched in the frequency of struggle, their immediate reaction isn't joy. It is sheer panic and suspicion.
Right. The immediate involuntary thought is, this is a setup. Where are the hidden cameras?
Is this a TikTok prank? Am I about to be robbed? Because the scenario violently violates their internal law.
Good things, especially highly desirable things, aren't supposed to be easy. If it's easy, the brain assumes it must be dangerous, malicious, or entirely fake.
The materials offer another fantastic everyday analogy about picking a perfectly good, juicy tomato off a fast food burger.
I love this one.
You're handed something good, something that adds flavor and nutritional value, but you unconsciously, almost reflexively repel it. You pick it off and say, no, I'm good, I don't need that.
And we do this with intentional blessings all the time.
Yes. When a high-paying client agrees to your proposal too easily, without negotiating your rate, You immediately think, I must have priced it too low. They're taking advantage of me.
Or this client is going to be a nightmare.
When you find yourself in a healthy communicative relationship without constant fighting, you think, there's no passion here. Something is missing.
When you see a massive green flag, your struggle-addicted brain assumes it is a trap painted green.
It's vibrational self-sabotage because we have unconsciously written a line of code into our own psychological software. Ease equals bad.
Ease equals lazy. Ease equals undeserving.
So whenever the universe or reality or your network or whatever you want to call the external world tries to materialize ease in our lives, our internal security system activates and swats it away.
We bounce the blessing right back to sender.
And this is why, as the literature heavily emphasizes, you cannot experience anything physically unless it exists vibrationally and psychologically first.
If your subconscious mind has deeply associated ease with being a terrible, lazy, dishonorable human being, you have erected a massive, impenetrable boundary.
Reality cannot cross a boundary that your subconscious mind actively, aggressively defends.
So we don't just happen to prefer struggle, we are actively enforcing it like Border Patrol agents to protect our core identity.
Okay, so how do we fix this? Because identifying the trap is one thing, but the sources go deep into the metaphysical and neurological mechanics of how these beliefs actually operate, and it is fascinating.
It really shifts the paradigm.
Normally, we talk about beliefs as characteristics. We say, I am a struggling person, I am an anxious person. We identify completely with a characteristic.
Which the texts clarify is completely backwards. We make the fundamental cognitive error of identifying with our qualities and characteristics instead of realizing that it is the qualities and characteristics that are identifying with us.
This is the quote that stopped me in my tracks. It's a total paradigm shift. You don't have beliefs, beliefs have you.
It is a radical reframing of human consciousness. The source material proposes that a struggle complex isn't just a passive, harmless thought pattern floating in your head.
It functions practically as a spiritual or psychological entity.
And by entity, we don't mean a ghost or a demon. We mean a highly consolidated, self-organizing pattern of energy and neural pathways that exists autonomously on the mental and emotional planes.
And like any living organism, like a virus or a bacteria, its primary overriding directive is survival.
It wants to survive, and more than that, it wants to materialize itself physically to ensure its continued existence.
But here is the catch. A thought pattern cannot materialize without energy. It has no physical mass.
So what does it do? It acts like a parasite. It seeks to buy up your mental real estate.
It conquers your consciousness.
If it can successfully dominate your daily thoughts and emotions, it hijacks your energy to materialize its own existence, which is more struggle, into your physical reality.
So it's essentially a computer virus. It needs a host hardware system to run its code.
That's a great analogy.
Let's make sure the listener really grasps the how of this, because it sounds a bit like, metaphysical magic if we don't ground it. How does a belief actually hijack the brain?
We can ground this directly in neurology, specifically looking at the reticular activating system, or the RAS.
RAS, right.
The RAS is a bundle of nerves at our brainstem that filters out unnecessary information so the important stuff gets through.
Because your brain processes millions of bits of data every second, but you are only consciously aware of a tiny fraction.
Exactly. The RAS decides what gets through based on what you focus on. When a belief conquers your consciousness, it programs your RAS.
If the entity is the struggle complex, it programs your brain to literally filter out any visual or auditory evidence of ease, opportunity, or kindness.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. So if I adopt the belief making money is a brutal struggle, that belief sets up shop in my mind, feeds on my emotional energy.
Programs my RAS to only notice bills, rejections, and economic downturns.
And then uses my subsequent panicked actions to create a reality full of actual financial struggle, which in turn feeds the belief more physical evidence that it was right all along.
It is a flawless, deeply terrifying, self-sustaining loop.
The entity creates the evidence it needs to justify its own survival.
And the primary mechanism it uses to maintain this absolute control brings us to another profound concept explored in the materials, the universal principles of polarity.
Okay, let's explore this. The Law of Polarity. This was one of the most eye-opening sections.
The premise is that everything in reality exists with a complementary energetic pair.
You cannot have masculine without feminine, hot without cold, dark without light, up without down.
They're essentially the exact same energy, just vibrating at opposite ends of a spectrum.
Therefore, by universal law, if a struggle complex exists, its exact opposite polarity must also exist simultaneously.
An ease complex,
Hmm.
a state of flow, abundance, and effortless reception.
Exactly. But the survival strategy of the parasitic belief, the way the struggle complex maintains its grip on your mind, is by actively hiding its opposite.
The text refers to all limiting beliefs as half-truths.
A belief acts as a massive blinder. It hides the opposing option from your conscious awareness so that you exclusively concentrate all of your life force and energy on it alone.
Because if you actually knew the other option was real, tangible, and readily available, you would immediately stop feeding the struggle complex.
You'd evict the tenant.
You would. Concentration is the centralization of energy. When you concentrate entirely on the concept of struggle, that centralization of thought sets into motion a vibration in your nervous system.
That vibration becomes your broadcast frequency. And that frequency, via the IDS we discussed earlier, materializes as your physical reality.
This connects so directly to what you, the listener, experience every single day. Let's ground this in a real scenario.
Let's do it.
Think about when you firmly, aggressively believe getting a good job in this terrible economy is impossible right now.
Or all men are untrustworthy and will cheat on you, or all women are manipulative and out to use you.
When you accept those statements as absolute, unquestionable truth, you have allowed a parasitic half-truth to completely hide the opposite polarity.
You have put on the blinders.
You've hidden the reality where jobs are incredibly abundant and companies are actively desperate for your exact unique skills.
You've completely hidden the reality where healthy, deeply supportive, loyal relationships are thriving all around you.
You literally cannot see them, even if they walk right past you on the street.
Your beliefs become the outermost boundaries of your universe. Anything outside that boundary becomes effectively invisible to you.
Your intuition won't guide you toward the healthy partner or the lucrative job posting because your internal frequency refuses to acknowledge they even exist.
As the text states so powerfully, there are no absolute truths in the reality you experience other than what your subconscious mind actively accepts as true.
That is a heavy realization. It means we are the jailers of our own invisible prisons.
We hold the keys, yet we stay in the cell.
We are concentrating all our precious energy on the half-truth of scarcity and vibrating that scarcity into our bank accounts and living rooms.
But this begs another question. Where does this initial scarcity come from?
Right. If these beliefs are parasites, how did we catch them in the first place? We aren't born cynical and exhausted.
No, we are definitely not. And this is where the source material gets incredibly vulnerable, moving away from abstract theory into the messy reality of human pain.
It introduces a massive, often ignored blind spot that keeps our frequency locked in scarcity and struggle.
And surprisingly, it's not about lacking financial literacy or needing better career tactics.
It is entirely about broken trust wounds.
Broken trust. This blew my mind because it connects the metaphysical theories directly to our most painful, relatable human experiences.
We all have broken trust wounds.
To fully grasp this, we have to look at the delivery mechanism of reality. The text states a very simple but profound truth. Life happens through people.
People are the physical instruments through which consciousness, opportunity, and life act themselves out.
If you want a new job, a human being has to review your resume and hire you.
If you want a romantic relationship, a person dates you.
If you want to build wealth, a person or a group of people must decide to buy your product or service.
We aren't manifesting things in a sterile vacuum. Gold coins don't just fall from the sky into our laps. Everything we want comes to us through the vast interconnected network of humanity.
Right. And therefore, your subconscious perception of people is your subconscious perception of life itself.
If you hold a foundational distrust of people, you are harboring a foundational distrust of life.
And this leads to what the materials call the extrapolation of betrayal.
Let's paint a picture here. Let's say you grew up in a really tough environment. Maybe your parents were unreliable, or people in your neighborhood were constantly letting you down.
Or maybe you spent your 20s dating incredibly toxic people who lied to you, manipulated you, and broke your heart.
Your subconscious mind meticulously records those intense, painful emotional experiences.
It analyzes the data and notes that the instruments of life people are fundamentally tainted.
They are dangerous. They are sources of pain, disappointment, and betrayal.
The text gives this incredible real-world case study of an 8-figure female entrepreneur.
Let's really dissect her story because it perfectly illustrates this trap. She is highly successful, capable, driven, and she decides to create this beautiful online platform for other driven, supportive, ambitious women.
She wants to build a collaborative community, and out of the goodness of her heart, she makes it completely free to join.
It is a generous, well-intentioned, highly valuable action. By all logical marketing metrics, it should be a massive success.
Exactly. She advertises it for weeks to her already massive engaged audience.
And what happens? Nobody signs up. Zero. Crickets.
For a free, highly valuable platform created by an industry leader.
She is absolutely baffled. She asks her team, what is going on? Everyone knows me. I have the credentials. The offer is incredible. There's no financial risk.
And then during a coaching session outlined in the research, the real invisible issue is finally uncovered.
The coach asks her to describe the exact type of woman she wants to attract to this platform, someone supportive, driven, collaborative, and entirely without envy.
And she's asked, tell me about that type of woman. How do you feel about her?
Her immediate visceral response is telling. She says, that type of woman is rare.
Wow. Women like me are rare.
In that single sentence, she revealed her true internal frequency.
Consciously, she was seeking to attract an abundance of supportive people, but her underlying subconscious belief or frequency was that these people were incredibly scarce.
She held a fundamental, unhealed distrust that a large community of genuinely supportive, non-envious women actually existed in the world.
Her subconscious scarcity dictated the physical outcome, completely overriding her conscious, generous actions.
That is chilling. Her intuition and mental nudges probably guided her to subtly market the platform in a way that wouldn't convert.
Or to use copy that felt slightly alienating, or to target an audience segment that wouldn't resonate.
And she did all of this unconsciously, all to prove her underlying belief correct. See, I knew it. I put myself out there and nobody came. Supportive women really are rare.
That is the insidious, far-reaching nature of an uncompartmentalized mind. You might think a bitter betrayal from a best friend when you were 15 years old is neatly filed away in a dusty past traumas folder in your brain.
Totally isolated from your adult business endeavors.
But it isn't. The emotional resonance of that wound extrapolates to the collective.
That one profound betrayal teaches your malleable subconscious people cannot be trusted.
And since people are the literal vehicles for business, relationships, and success, you inadvertently develop a deep mistrust toward the delivery system of life itself.
You essentially start paying for the sins of the person who originally hurt you decades ago.
And not only that, you make everyone else in your present life pay for it too, by pushing them away, rejecting their help, or sabotaging deals before they can inevitably betray you.
You strike first to protect yourself.
And what makes this cycle so incredibly difficult to break is a primary function of the universe highlighted throughout the texts: magnification.
The external world acts as a massive magnifying glass for your internal state of being.
If you operate from a foundational state of mistrust and expectation of betrayal, reality will not bend over backwards to try and convince you otherwise.
It will simply and efficiently magnify your mistrust by bringing you scenarios that validate it perfectly.
It's the confirmation bias of the cosmos.
I see it the exact same way. If you expect betrayal, reality will deliver the client who enthusiastically signs the contract and then backs out at the last possible second.
It will deliver the boss who verbally promises you a promotion for 6 months and then gives it to the CEO's nephew.
It will bring you romantic relationships that begin with intense passion and end in sudden, cold disappointment.
And it does this not as a cosmic punishment, but as a perfect neutral reflection of the frequency you are continuously emitting.
You mistrust people.
Yeah.
So life obediently brings you people who break your trust.
It's a terrifyingly perfect mirror.
So let's summarize where we are at. We are dealing with a self-worth ceiling that is bolted to the floor by heavy societal conditioning about the nobility of struggle.
That ceiling is guarded by parasitic, self-sustaining beliefs that hide our alternative options.
And the entire structure is locked in place by unresolved trust wounds that make us deeply suspicious of the very people who hold the keys to our success.
That is a highly accurate, if slightly daunting summary of the human predicament.
It sounds like an inescapable, perfectly engineered trap.
But the sources do not leave us languishing there. They synthesize this entire journey into a very clear, actionable path out.
And it starts with recognizing what actually sets that invisible ceiling in the first place.
Our internal self-worth is the absolute, non-negotiable ceiling of what we can materialize in the physical world.
Whatever you are attempting to bring into your life, $1 million, a healthy marriage, a thriving artistic career, if the vibrational reality of that desire exceeds your subconscious self-worth, your internal systems will find a highly creative way to dismantle it, lose it, or repel it.
The fundamental question, then, is how do we practically raise that ceiling?
Especially if we have decades of dense historical conditioning telling us we only deserve poverty, toxic relationships, or endless grinding struggle.
This is where we have to look under the hood at the actual machinery of the subconscious mind. How do we reprogram the software?
We've all tried the logical repetition route, right? The classic self-help trope of standing in the bathroom mirror, staring at yourself, and aggressively chanting, "I am a millionaire. I am a millionaire."
While your logical brain rolls its eyes and says, no, you're not, you have $30 in your checking account and you can't even pay rent.
Exactly. Logical repetition, trying to consciously bludgeon your subconscious into submission with words, is a very long, arduous, and frankly, often highly ineffective way to enact permanent change.
The text reveals a crucial biological mechanism. The subconscious mind does not primarily speak the language of logic, reason, or vocabulary.
It speaks the visceral language of emotion.
Emotion is the foundational coding language of the human operating system.
Think about how trauma operates in the brain. It only takes one intensely traumatic experience, a sudden car accident, a violent physical encounter, a severe and unexpected public humiliation.
To completely, instantly, and permanently shift a person's entire paradigm.
You do not need to repeat a car crash 100 times to become terrified of driving.
The extreme emotional intensity of that single isolated event floods the nervous system with cortisol and adrenaline, and it rewires the neural pathways of the subconscious mind instantaneously.
That is so true. The emotional spike is like a laser. It burns the new program directly onto the hard drive in a fraction of a second.
Now, because we understand the law of polarity, we know that if this biological mechanism works so powerfully in the negative direction, it must, by definition, also work in the positive direction.
Emotional calibration is not exclusively limited to fear, pain, and trauma.
One intensely positive, deeply emotionally charged experience can completely rewire the subconscious toward ease, abundance, and absolute trust.
And here is the ultimate cheat code. Since the subconscious mind and the nervous system cannot physically tell the difference between a real external event and a vividly emotionally imagined internal event,
We can generate that emotional spike ourselves.
we don't have to wait around for the external world to finally give us a reason to feel good. We can systematically engineer the feeling internally to force the external world to change.
The sources provide a phenomenal documented example of this exact principle in action.
Oh, the student story.
Yes. It involves a university student who was struggling severely academically. This student was taking rigorous exams graded out of 100.
Because they suffered from crippling, deeply ingrained self-doubt. They couldn't score a perfect 100 on any of their initial exams, no matter how hard they studied.
The self-doubt was their dominant frequency, so their physical reality consistently reflected imperfect, frustrating results.
But then they decided to apply this internal emotional shift.
They stopped cramming harder and instead altered their internal frequency from anxious self-doubt to utter, peaceful conviction.
The text frames this mental pivot beautifully. The student realized that to doubt yourself is to literally doubt the infinite internal potential, the absolute universal intelligence that resides within you.
It executed a profound shift in their self-concept. And what happened when they stopped forcing the action and changed the frequency?
In their final 2 exams, without the agonizing stress, without the frantic late-night overstudying rooted in sheer panic, they easily scored a 98 and a perfect 100.
Their overall average unexpectedly jumped to 96.8.
And the most fascinating part is that it didn't stop at the grades. Because the mind is entirely uncompartmentalized, that massive shift in frequency rippled out into every other area of their life.
The students suddenly started receiving unexpected sums of money as gifts from distant relatives.
Furthermore, their parents unexpectedly received delayed salaries that had been withheld for 3 months.
By shifting their internal state, they moved their entire family out of the struggle complex and firmly into the ease complex.
When you raise the ceiling of your self-worth in one specific area through genuine felt emotional conviction, you inherently raise the ceiling for everything else.
The ease spills over the boundaries you previously set.
So we arrive at the most important part of this entire discussion. How do we do this practically?
The sources give us a very specific, actionable, step-by-step method for this emotional reprogramming.
Let's really break this down meticulously for the listener who is exhausted and ready to stop fighting their invisible wall. Walk us through the mechanics of this meditation.
The practical application requires entirely bypassing the conscious analytical mind.
That beta wave state is the part of you that wants to argue, rationalize, and constantly remind you of why you are currently stuck.
You must bypass it to reach the subconscious. To do this, you must reach a completely relaxed, almost hypnotic meditative state, typically an alpha or theta brainwave state.
The text notes that depending on how wound up your nervous system is, this could take 5 minutes, or it could take 50 minutes of deep breathing.
The duration is irrelevant. The physical state of deep, heavy relaxation is what is strictly required.
I love the analogy of the logical bouncer.
It's perfect.
Your conscious mind is like a massive, intimidating bouncer standing outside the nightclub of your subconscious. If you walk up while you're stressed and say, "I am a millionaire," the bouncer looks at your bank app, laughs, and denies you entry.
You have to get the body so physically relaxed through breath work that the logical bouncer literally falls asleep in his chair.
That is a highly accurate representation.
Yeah.
Once your body feels heavy, completely relaxed, and the conscious chatter of the mind is quiet, the bouncer is asleep. The door is open.
Now, you construct an imaginative scene, but it cannot be just any vague daydream.
You must create a very specific, incredibly short scenario where someone else is actively acknowledging you for having already attained your ultimate internal goal.
This detail is absolutely key. It's not a movie of you working hard toward the goal. It's not you running the marathon.
It is the end result. It is standing at the finish line with the medal around your neck.
It's a trusted friend shaking your hand, making eye contact, and saying, "Congratulations on the massive promotion. You earned it."
Or it's the visceral feeling of sitting at your kitchen table, holding a warm cup of coffee, looking at a specific number on your bank statement while feeling completely, utterly at peace.
And once you construct that highly specific 5 to 10-second scene, you must loop it.
You play it over and over and over again in your mind's eye, like a GIF.
Because as you loop it, you begin to layer in the sensory details. What is the exact tone of their voice? What does the texture of their hand feel like during the handshake?
Is the room warm or cold? What do you smell?
As you obsessively focus on these sensory details, the brain begins to process the imagined event as reality, and it will eventually stimulate a genuine, intense, physiological emotion.
You stop just seeing the picture and you start to actually physically feel the immense relief, the soaring joy, and the profound tear-inducing satisfaction of having finally arrived.
Your heart rate might change, your muscles might twitch.
And that physical reaction is the absolute goal.
When you stimulate that intense positive emotion while simultaneously holding the visual image of your success, you are quite literally emotionally experiencing a new reality.
You are successfully communicating with your subconscious in its native biological language.
Because your self-worth ceiling is entirely determined by what you have historically emotionally experienced, you are now artificially, intentionally giving it a brand new, elevated emotional experience.
You are rewriting the base code. You are deliberately overwriting the historical data of trauma, the memories of rejection, the endless history of struggle.
With a visceral, undeniably real emotional experience of ease, triumph, and safety.
And when that new program installs and compiles, your self-worth ceiling instantly rises.
And as the ceiling rises, your baseline frequency permanently changes.
When your frequency changes, the multidimensional sequence kicks in automatically, but this time it is working completely in your favor.
Your new elevated frequency downloads entirely new intuition from the database.
That new intuition gives you brilliantly different inspired mental nudges.
Those nudges lead to aligned actions that feel incredibly effortless. You make the right phone call, you say the perfect thing on the date.
And those effortless actions naturally midwife your new elevated reality into physical existence.
It is so incredibly elegant. It is a complete unified theory of human behavior, why we get stuck, and the exact mechanical process of how we break free.
It removes all of that toxic guilt of, "I'm just not grinding hard enough," and replaces it with the profound, empowering responsibility of, "I need to aggressively manage my internal frequency."
It demands an inward focus, which is where true agency lies.
The entire journey we have systematically unpacked today, from understanding the absolute illusion of forced action to dismantling the societal struggle complex,
To recognizing our limiting beliefs as energetic entities, to healing the foundational wounds of broken trust, and finally to mastering emotional reprogramming.
it all points inexorably to one inescapable conclusion. True, lasting power is entirely internal.
The manuscripts define true manifestation perfectly. It isn't some parlor trick about manipulating the physical world. forcing people to do what you want so you can finally feel secure and happy.
It is about shifting your internal state to such a profound, unshakable degree that you are no longer emotionally dependent upon seeing the physical reality change at all.
That is the ultimate psychological liberation. There was an individual mentioned in the source materials, a commenter from Ecuador, who shared a powerful personal anecdote.
They explained that after applying these principles, money began flowing into their life in highly unexpected, serendipitous ways.
But the most important, transcendent part of their story was their realization that they had reached a profound state of inner peace, where they felt genuinely good, secure, and whole, whether they physically held the money in their hands or not.
They successfully detached their internal self-worth from the chaotic external circumstances.
The external world is, by definition, a realm of constant polarity and fluctuation. It goes up and down, stock markets crash, businesses fail, people leave, things break.
If your self-worth is tethered to the physical world, you'll always be a passenger on a terrifying roller coaster. You will always be a perpetual victim of circumstance.
But when you firmly anchor your self-worth internally, when you realize that all frequencies, every possible imaginable version of reality already exists dormant within you, you become practically untouchable.
The text uses a beautiful, grounding, biological metaphor to close its arguments. Think of a tiny seed, like an acorn.
The small seed of an oak tree already contains the complete genetic potential, the entire complex blueprint for the massive, towering oak tree within its shell.
The oak tree doesn't have to go out into the forest and hustle to find its oakness. It doesn't have to network or struggle or suffer from imposter syndrome to become an oak.
It simply requires the right nurturing environment, soil, water, sunlight, to naturally reveal what is already perfectly, flawlessly encoded within it.
You as a human being are exactly the same. You are already one with your desired reality.
The immense capacity for profound internal peace, abundant financial wealth, and deeply harmonious relationships is already perfectly encoded within your consciousness.
You do not need to forcefully, violently extract these things from a seemingly hostile world. You simply need to cultivate the internal emotional environment that allows them to naturally reveal themselves to you.
When we finally detach our worth from external struggle, our potential becomes completely, terrifyingly limitless.
Those invisible walls we've been hitting for years aren't really solid walls at all. They're just smoke and mirrors, reflecting our own internal boundaries. And mirrors can always be shattered.
The entire architecture of your external life is built squarely upon the foundation of your internal self-concept. Change the internal concept, and the external architecture must, by universal law, redesign itself to match.
This has been an absolutely profound exploration. We've taken a lot of complex, almost metaphysical and neurological concepts and grounded them deeply in the messy reality of our daily frustrations.
And for you, listening to us right now, whether you are finishing your commute, folding laundry, or sitting at your desk, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Something to carry with you as you step back into the noise of the physical world. Think back to the very beginning of our conversation.
Think about that invisible wall you have been hitting over and over again in your career, your finances, or your love life.
If your intuition is just a mechanical echo of your current frequency, and your frequency is just a recorded loop of your past emotional experiences and traumas,
What happens if you decide right now, in this exact moment, to stop letting your history write your future?
what if the agonizing struggle you have been conditioned to think you need is the only thing standing in the way of the breathtaking ease you truly deserve?